No-code tools have come a long way to the point where it's fairly easy to build even more complex applications without writing much code, if any. But there's one area where the functionality and the features of modern no-code tools definitely leaves a lot to be desired. And so in today's video, I'm going to tell you what that one area of weakness when it comes to no-code tools is. And I'll also discuss with you an amazing solution that you can use to augment your no-code development. Now, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I'm going to be demonstrating and or building in today's video are going to be available to view and or clone from my Patreon page. And you can get more information about our incredible Patreon community via the link just below this video. Now, one of my favorite tools when it comes to no-code development is FlutterFlow. And in fact, here I am logged in into one of my apps here in FlutterFlow that I actually built recently, just like a week or some days ago. And this is an app that allows users to book various services with people who provide those services. So for instance, if you need a haircut, you can book a haircut appointment at a barber. If you need maybe a consultation, you can book a consult with a person that is proficient in that area where perhaps you're seeking advice from some sort. And so when it comes to building apps, you can build amazing apps. In fact, it took me like maybe a day and a half to build this amazing app that's fully functional, fully ready, that you can start using right now. But there's one area where no-code tools definitely lack, and that is when it comes to connecting with other apps, tools, and or services. And so, for instance, with this app that I'm looking at, building this app is very, very easy. Everything is drag and drop. I just simply drag an element here. I may drag it there. I just click here. I have my flows. Everything is integrated. Everything is beautiful. But let's say I want to connect to a third party. I want to do maybe currency conversion, or I want to do Stripe payments, or I want to, connect to a chat GPT and get some AI recommendation. Well, in that case, I need to click on API calls and I need to create an API call. And once I do that, I am no longer in this kind of comfortable environment, right? I'm no longer in this drag and drop interface. I need to go out. I need to learn about this API interface. I need to understand, what kind of data to send, what kind of data to get back. I need to do something called JSON parsing and something called the JSON path. And so the end result is that, you come from this very, very comfortable environment where you just drag and dropping. It's beautiful. It's easy. It's intuitive. But then, once I need to get data, I'm back into this kind of low level environment. I need to start dealing with, different data elements. I need to figure out, is this an array? Is this an object? I need to parse things. And so most of no-code tools are exactly like this. Everything is great when you're dealing inside of it, right? When you're dealing with the data that's available inside of this no-code tool. So whether you're dealing something with Firestore DB or local state or page state or app state, everything works amazingly. But the problem begins when you are dealing with some kind of external service, external data, external something. So here's a quick diagram to kind of explain to you what's happening. We have a user, they're accessing the UI, they're dealing with logic, state, database, and this is our app right here. This is our app. But the moment you need to deal with external data, now you're kind of in this low level, this little bit of kind of figure out this data here, this data there. And that is the biggest kind of weakness of modern no-code tools. But fear not, I have a solution for you. And so in today's video, we're going to be discussing one of my favorite no-code tools that's highly, highly underrated when it comes to dealing with data. So we're talking about accessing third-party data. We're talking about connecting to third-party APIs, accessing components that exist somewhere else, getting this data, sending data, transforming this data, doing all kinds of amazing things. And then later on in the video, I'm going to be showing you how you can have the best of both worlds, how you can easily manipulate this data and then bring it into your FlutterFlow app. And that means you finally have the solution that works beautifully, whether you're dealing with internal data or you're dealing with some kind of amazing external APIs. Because the fact of the matter is, unless you're building like a simple to-do app, chances are you're going to need to access some third-party API, whether it's, Chat GPT, OpenAI, or currency conversion, or, sending emails, or, accessing Google Sheets. You name it, you need an easy interface, a standardized interface to access all of this data. And that is exactly what we're going to be covering today. Now, the tool that I want to show you is called Make.com. And this is a tool I've been using for years. I know this video is not sponsored by Make.com. Been using this tool for years. I've used it even before I started to use FlutterFlow. And so this is an incredible tool. And I'm going to be showing you exactly what this tool is all about, how you can use it, what you can do with it. And then a little bit later in the video, we're going to be building some simple apps. And then I'm going to be showing you how you can connect this tool quickly and easily to your FlutterFlow apps as well. And so here I am logged into Make.com. This is kind of the front page. And what we're seeing here is some information about, my operations, active scenarios, data transfers, things like that. And mind you, I'm on a free plan right now. They have a very, very generous free plan that I've been using all of this time. And so if you're not going to be a heavy user, and if you're just starting out, chances are you're not going to be a heavy user, you can easily use it for absolutely free. Now, I want to bring your attention to this left panel here. Okay, so we have this team here, but where it gets interesting is where we have scenarios, templates, connections, and all of these other things. Now, what are scenarios? Okay, scenarios are essentially flows. Okay, you create a flow, and what a flow does, it essentially transforms your data into something else, into some kind of end result, what you're looking for. And throughout this whole flow, you're accessing third-party services, right? You want to access OpenAI, Chat GPT, you can do that. You want to access a currency conversion tool or an app, you can do that. You want to access, maybe a weather app, you can do that. They have hundreds and hundreds of different modules that allow you to easily access them and have them do the work for you while you're getting the end result. So here I have a bunch of scenarios here that I've been using, and I'm constantly creating new scenarios. I'm constantly deleting scenarios. But before we create a new scenario, let me show you kind of the overall picture here. So if you go to templates here, and you're going to see that essentially templates are your building blocks. Okay, so if you're not sure, what you're trying to do, templates is a good starting point, because here you can see, some of the things that you can do. So for instance, here we have email with Google Sheets. This allows you to add new incoming emails to a Google Sheets spreadsheet as a new row. So you have a new email coming in, maybe to a specific account, and you can just parse the data from the email subject, body, sender, receiver, you name, and just create a new row with all of that data parsed in, right? Very, very simple, but very, very powerful. Okay, here we have post new RSS feed items containing a specific word to a Facebook page. Okay, so maybe you have an RSS feed and you want to post some data to Facebook. Very easy. Here we have a Telegram bot. We scroll down, we have send new files from Google Drive to a Telegram channel. Okay, so you have this data flowing from different places, right? Shall we say? So like Google Drive, you have data, maybe you have some data stored in Google Drive. You can easily capture that data and send it to a Telegram bot that you can communicate with. So lots and lots of connections, but lots of ways of getting it to work together, as you're going to see in just a second. This is an incredibly underrated tool. Okay, so we have more things, connections, we have webhooks, keys, devices, data stores, data structures, lots and lots of things that you can do, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But right now I want to go into scenarios, and I want to create a very, very simple scenario with you guys, so that you guys can see how easy and how powerful this tool is, and how much more painful it would be to do the same thing in FlutterFlow. So here we are on the scenario screen. I'm going to click create a new scenario. And once I do that, I am presented with this kind of canvas. And this is my starting point. And before we create the scenario, you have to understand that there are two ways of kind of triggering this scenario, right? You can have a scenario that gets run maybe on a set interval, right? So like maybe every hour, every 15 minutes, every day, etc., etc. Or you can have a scenario that runs asynchronously. So this scenario is going to run by itself when it gets a certain event. Okay, so depending on your main use case, maybe you want to create a scenario that runs every 15 minutes. Maybe you want to send an email to yourself every hour on some kind of status. You can do that. But in our case, we're going to be building asynchronous scenarios because we're going to be connecting to FlutterFlow, and the only way to do it using asynchronous scenarios. And so let's click on this. And when you click on this, you can see the possibilities. And these are all modules. These are all pre-built modules that give you no code access to third-party services. So these are all third-party services, and I don't know like 90% of them. Okay, so maybe some of you can look at it. Okay, there's Airtable, we know Airtable. So if you want to connect to Airtable, right? If you want to build a FlutterFlow app, you have to go out and you have to learn the API and create all these requests. And here you don't need to do that, right? You can just use Airtable component module. We have Amazon, you have all of these. It's incredible, right? But what we're going to search for is we're going to type web and we are going to search for webhook. Okay, so if you type webhook, you're going to see webhooks here. If you click on it, once you click on the module, we're not done yet. You need to decide like what exactly do you want to do with this module. And so we have three options here. We have a custom mail hook, we have a custom webhook, and we have a webhook response. So what is a webhook or what is a mail hook? So a webhook is something that gets triggered anytime you send a request to it. Okay, so it's listening for requests, and if your app or you manually or you ask somebody to send a request to it, it's going to trigger, and you're going to be sending some data as part of that request, and it's going to take that data and do something with that data. A mail hook is the same thing, except it's triggered when you send an email. Okay, so you can create a mail hook or a webhook. This webhook response, we're going to be creating this at the end, because we're going to have the response at the end of this flow. And so for the purpose of this tutorial, we're just going to start with a webhook. So I'm going to say webhook. And as you can see, we have this thing here. Now, if this was a kind of a schedule, then you would have a clock here. But in this case, it's kind of this lightning icon here. And this means this is an asynchronous flow. We're going to click here. We're going to add a webhook. And we're going to call it maybe our web. Okay, because we're building a simple weather app just to show you how it works. And at this point, make is now listening for the data and will determine the data structure from the incoming data automatically. And so now we need to send the data so you can figure out, the data that we're sending, and then it can use this data in our flow. Very, very powerful. And so now I'm going to load my Rapid API, which is a Mac app that allows you to easily test, send, request, HTTP requests, right? This is awesome for API testing. I use this app all the time. And so we're going to come back. We're going to click copy address to clipboard. We're going to paste it here. And now we're going to formulate our request here. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to create a sample JSON request. I'm going to say city and I'm going to say New York, right? Because we're building an app that's going to accept the name of the city and then give us a weather report, give us some kind of weather data. And so I have city New York, very, very simple JSON request. You want to click here just to test that it parsed it correctly. As you can see, there's no errors. Come back to text, it's still there. And then what you want to do is you want to send this request. So it's listening. And so we're going to execute this request and it says accepted. Okay. And it also says here successfully determined. And so at this point, this webhook knows the kind of data that we're going to be sending, and it's going to parse this data. And then we can use variables to kind of specify that data in all kinds of interesting ways. Now, the next thing that we need to do, we want to click on plus and we want to search for another module that we're interested in kind of, taking advantage of in order to kind of build our app. So in this case, we're building a weather app. So I'm going to search for weather. And I have three options. I have weather, open weather map, and I have something else. I'm going to just choose weather. And once I choose it, I have two more options, either get current weather or get a daily weather forecast. I'm just going to do get current weather. And it's asking me, I want to enter location by cities or coordinates. I'm going to say cities. And now it wants a city. So we're not going to type in the name of the city. Remember, we're passing the name here. So all you need to do is click here and you have access to the data that was parsed in that first step. So we're going to click city, click OK. And now if you run it once and we execute this again, you're going to see it says accepted. And if you click here, you can see that this is the input New York. And if you click here, you're going to see the input and you're going to see the output. So in our case, we see that. And this is the output. So we have real, weather information, right? Temperature is 15 degrees Celsius, which is what, like, was it 50, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that? Atmospheric pressure, etc., etc. And we're not done yet because we need to send a response. Remember, our sample request, it never got a response, right? It just says accepted. So we're going to click here and we're going to click on webhooks. And the only option in this case is webhook response because we already have the request. So we just have the response. We're going to click here. And now we want to, we have a place to enter the response. This is the body. And once you click on this, you have all the variables from the previous modules at your disposal. So we want to, let's output temperature. I'm going to click on temperature. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to run once. And then I'm going to execute, and we should get the temperature back instead of accepted. So I'm going to execute this right here, and we get 15.4. Now, I can also click here. I can delete it, and I can say, let's say, I want wind speed. Do that, run once, execute, and we get wind speed, okay? Very, very simple, but it's very easy to do because in FlutterFlow, what you need to do in this case, right? What you would have to do is you'd have to go here. You'd have to go to your API. You'd have to learn about this weather API. You need to know how to parse it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's not very no code, right? That's kind of, you're kind of going towards the code area, right? It's parsing data. It's very low level. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a lot better. Now, this is one example. Let's go ahead and create another example. So let's create something with AI. The rage now. So let's save this because we might need this later. Let's go back. Let's go to our scenarios, and you have a list of scenarios. And I'm going to create a new scenario. I'm going to call this, let's call this chat or, GPT AI, something like this. Plus, we're going to search for webhook because this is going to be triggered using webhooks. We're going to do a custom webhook, and I'm going to add a new webhook, and I'm going to call this open GPT, click save, and now it's listening for data. And so I'm going to come back over here, go back to my app, and I'm just going to reuse the same request. Okay, so I'm going to copy this thing here, this URL. And in this case, we're going to change it. We're going to say question, and this is going to be a GPT completion. So we're going to say, what is the capital? The capital of the United States. What is the capital of the United States? Okay. So it's listening. We're going to execute it. It says accepted. It learned our data structure, which is a very, very simple JSON data structure. And obviously you can make it as complex as you want, as you're going to see a little bit later in the video. But it's just very, very simple. Just one key, one value question. What is the capital of the United States? And now here comes the magic part, right? We're going to click on plus. Add another module. We're gonna search for chat, actually open OpenAI right here. We're gonna pick create a completion. Now I already configured my OpenAI. If you haven't, you can click on add and enter your API key. You can get it by going here. You don't need to fill this out. This is optional. I already did that, and that's why I'm seeing the screen. And so we're going to select a method. You can do a prompt completion or a chat completion. So you can build a chat bot very, very easily. I'm going to do a prompt completion. I'm going to click here. I'm going to select the model. I'm going to select this model over here. Now we need to enter the prompt. So what is the prompt? Remember, we have this question from here. So we're going to use this question here. And now we can do run once. We can execute this and see if we're getting the response. So click here. This is the input, right? What is the capital of the United States? Click here, input, output, right? Input is this. And let's go open this up. And you can see the capital of the United States is Washington. Okay, so there you see, right? You're seeing the actual OpenAI response. Now imagine doing this from scratch in FlutterFlow, right? Or pretty much any other app builder. Not only will you need to create those API methods and all that, but you'll have to write some code as well. And here you don't need to do that, right? So you can clean this up a little bit, and now we can add another module, and this is going to be our webhook response. And so this is going to output the response. But I want to show you something else that you can do, right? Instead of outputting a response, we can take whatever we had here and we can format it as a JSON response, right? So we can click here. I'm going to search for JSON. We have a lot of modules. I'm going to click on JSON. And what I want to do is I want to transform to JSON any object. So I'm going to say transform, and here I need to pick my object. I'm going to click here, and the object that I want to do is maybe this choices, right? I'm just going to put that choices. Click OK. Let's clean it up a little bit. And now we have this thing transformed to a JSON response. I can click here, and now I have the body. This is my JSON string. Okay. Now if I do run once, I should get a JSON response back. Let's try that. Okay, and we got a JSON response, right? Now we have a JSON response that we can parse, that we can do all kinds of things because yes, in some situations, like with the weather app, you can just send a text response. But in many situations, if you're building a more complex app, you're gonna have lots of fields, and so you need to format it. And so in this case, we have text, index, we have a lot of things, and that's all here. And so now we've created two flows. We've created a very, very simple weather flow, and we've created a somewhat more complicated open AI flow, right? And remember, you can also do a prompt completion. You can also do a chat completion, which means that you can, keep sending it more context, and it's going to be able to refer back to your earlier questions, to the earlier context, in order to give you the response. And so that's very, very easy to do. And so now that you've seen how we create scenarios, how we create flows, let's jump back into FlutterFlow and let me show you how you can integrate all of this and make it all come together. And then I'm going to show you some of the more advanced functionality when it comes to make.com. All right, so let's go back into FlutterFlow. And I actually built a very, very simple app. And what this app does essentially is we have one page, and it consists of two rows, and each row has an input and a button, So the first one is the user enters a city, they click on weather, and they get a response. They get the temperature or whatever. And the second one is they have a completion, right? This is GPT completion. So they enter a question and they get back a GPT completion. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this app come together. So for that, let's go back to our scenarios. Actually, we're going to save this. Let's go back to our first scenario, right? This is our weather scenario right here. And let's go ahead and integrate this, right? So if we click here, there's this URL, copy address to clipboard. So we're going to copy that URL, that initial URL, and we're going to create a very, very simple API call. Okay, so I'm going to create an API call. I'm just going to say API. We're going to do a post, paste this URL. We're going to have a variable, right? Because, we need to enter the city that we want to get the weather. So I'm just going to say city. We're going to say string, add to call, save it, go to body, choose JSON. And here is where we need to create our simple request. So this is the request we decided to go with. City, say. Okay, we have the variables. And now we can go to response and test. We can enter, okay. Next, we want to go back to make.com and we want to do run once. Now, you won't need to do that in production, okay? Because it's going to be turned on and it's always going to be listening. But right now, I'm just showing you these individual flows, and that is why I'm doing run once. But you don't worry, you won't need to do that in production at all, okay? So this thing is listening for requests. We're going to come here and we're going to do a test API call. Hopefully that works. And we get back 3.6. Now, I don't believe this is temperature. I think we changed it to something else. Let's click here. Yeah, this is wind speed. Let's change it to temperature. Let's try this again. Run once. Come back here, test API, and we get the temperature 15 degrees, which is, I guess, around 60, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about right. And so once you test it, you know that it works. And I always recommend to you guys to test them first. Don't build your app unless you test it. So as you can see, we have the result here. And this means that we can finally go back to our UI and connect it all together. So we have this input, we have the weather. So we're gonna click on this, we're gonna add an action. I'm gonna search for API call, and we're gonna come here, we're gonna do API weather, select API weather API, add our variable, city. We're gonna pull that variable from widget state, the city. And what do we want to happen? Well, we're gonna have something simple. We're just gonna have an output like a snack bar that's gonna appear temporarily at the bottom of the app, at the bottom of the screen, and display the results. So we're going to click here, add an action. I'm going to search for snack bar, show snack bar, and value. Let's say we want to do combined text. Temp is add text. Going to come here, action outputs. This, we're going to do JSON body, and that's it. We don't need to do JSON path. We don't need to do anything like that because we're essentially controlling the response. Right? With third-party APIs, you never control the response. In this case, we're controlling the response. And so, in our case, we're not returning a JSON right? A JSON formatted object. We're just returning the number. That's just JSON body. We're gonna say confirm, and let's format it. Primary text is black. Let's make it red as the background, just so it kind of stands out. Yeah, black on red, or maybe yeah, black on red is fine. And so it's gonna display the snack bar, right? Text combination. Okay. And now let's go ahead and run the app and let's see if it works. We're gonna start a quick test environment here. All right, so here's our app. And before we actually execute everything, let's go back here. Let's do run once. It's listening now. We can go back to our app, click on weather, scroll down, and it says here the temp is 15.74. Now, obviously, we can format it as we wish to the nearest whole number and however you want to. But the point is it works, right? If we go back to our flows, we have a lot of information that we can see what's happening behind the scenes. Click here, input is New York, input New York, and then we have a lot of data. Status clouds, cloudiness 40, and that's partly cloudy, 40% clouds, air humidity, atmospheric pressure, all of that, right? Even an icon. Lots of information. This is the response right here. So as you can see, this works perfectly. Now let's finish our FlutterFlow app that connects with our GPT flow, right? So if we go back to our flows here, scenarios, flows, same thing. We have this GPT AI. Okay, we're gonna do edit. I'm gonna click here, copy this address to clipboard, go back to our app, configure this API, right? Let's add this API call, and I'm gonna do API GPT. We're gonna do post, and now let's configure it. So the variable is question, body is JSON, and it's question, format, no errors. Looks good to me. Go to response and test. What is the capital? Or let's save that. Okay, we have this. Let's go back to our app here and let me double check. Yep, it's passing question. We have JSON. We're getting the response. All right, let's run it once and let's do a test. Let's see if this works. All right, and we got the response, right? So we have a nice JSON response. Okay. You can also send just this if you want, but I wanted to show you guys how you can send more complex response. And here you can go to recommended, just grab selected. That's it. Call it whatever you want. Answer, and you have Rome is the capital. Nicely formatted. Everything is nice. Go back here, go to GPT, add an action, API call, open the whole thing, API GPT, variable, get it from widget state, question, and then show a snack bar. Show snack bar, and let's do, we can just do value, right? So we can do action output, this one, JSON body, let's grab our path. Very, very simple, confirm, and that's it. And now this is done. Let's go ahead and reload our app. All right, here's the app. Let's go back. Let's do run once. And we can type, what is the capital? Okay, GPT. Rome is the capital of Italy. And we get a nice response that we can use. And so as you can see, both of these work, right? We have city weather. We have what is the capital of Italy. Now, obviously in production, what you're going to do is you're going to go into scenarios and you're going to enable them. So you see, I have this one scenario running right now. And what you need to do is you click on this, and now this is enabled. So you never need to do, run once or any of that stuff. It's enabled. It's permanent. Now it's always going to be listening for requests until you disable it. Now, the real power of make.com is that it allows you to process the data any way you want. Not only can you send this data to different parts, right? So for instance, let's say I want to, add, another module. I can just click on this icon here, add a module here, and this wrench icon, and I can search. Let's say I want to do Google Sheets. Okay, type Google Sheets. I have Google Sheets. I have Google Forms. Type Google Sheets, and I can do add a row, update a row, clear a row. I built an app that allows you to build sites with, using Google Sheets in FlutterFlow. I did that like maybe 6 months ago, and it was just such a pain to kind of deal with all the APIs when it comes to dealing with Google Sheets. And here it's all built in. Look at this. Search rows, list. It's all done for you. I can click here, and let's say I want cloud. Google Cloud Firestore. You have that. So you can create new document, get, you can do so many things here without dealing with APIs, right? Even something as simple as a weather API, right? You don't need to learn about it. You don't need to do anything. You have you also have currency conversion, right? You're building some kind of a currency app. Currency, convert between currencies. You can, you have your amount. You can pick it from the variables here. You can pick input, output. You can also have it dynamically do it, right? So If the user specifies the input currency or the target currency, you can do it dynamically, right? By simply clicking here and entering it dynamically. Very, very easy, very simple. I'm going to delete this for now. But not only that, you also have flow control, lots and lots of things, which is probably something that I'm going to be covering in future videos. But you have things like repeater, iterator, array aggregator. And essentially what all of this means is that you can create intricate flow controls in your app, right? So you can have like a loop that goes through many elements, breaks it apart, combines it together. I actually had a flow where if I go back, gonna discard changes, go to my scenarios, that essentially like uses a lot of these these advanced things, right? So we have an iterator and we have an array aggregator, which essentially takes an object, splits it into many elements, does something with it, and then combines it. So you can do all of that visually, just like a no-code tool should do, right? And plus you have keys, devices. You also have data stores, data structures. You have lots and lots of things that you can do with this tool. You can build some amazing apps and never have to deal with APIs and reading APIs and figuring out APIs and thinking like how to process this, how to process that. You can easily do it using this app, and that is why I love this app so much. And so in one of the future videos, I look forward to making a more comprehensive tutorial talking about some of the advanced functionality. And trust me, once you see some of the more advanced stuff you can do with this tool, it's gonna blow your head off. But for now, even the simple things, even the scenarios that we created here, it's a lot easier and a lot faster to do it using this tool rather than going out, to a tool like FlutterFlow and doing even that simple chat GPT, GPT prompt completion or chat completion. It's a lot easier to do it here than going out and doing it inside of FlutterFlow, because in FlutterFlow, you need to build custom functions, custom actions, all of these things, and you don't need to do it in a tool such as this one. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you definitely owe it to yourself to check out our incredible Patreon community. We got a ton of members and it's growing rapidly every single day. Lots and lots of great people. They're asking amazing questions. And plus, you can view and or clone all the apps that I built on the channel, and you will get access to extra content as well, such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, and our exclusive Patreon supported only masterclass series. So if you are not yet a member, I definitely urge you to check it out and consider becoming a subscriber.